What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Alex Cuesta Show. How's everybody doing out there on this Thursday, December 21st of 2023 for episode 103 of the show? David, you're going to be needed today. I feel like you're, for once, it's a rare occasion that you're needed at all.
I know.
But,
it's rare, actually.
This is why I bring you around for these situations. So for those that maybe can't tell, that means you don't listen to the show, but I'm happy you're here now. But my voice is terrible right now. I am battling through with cough drops for whatever reason the last 2 days. My voice just decided to piss off. So I'm going to do what I can. And, you know, I've been looking forward to this show, so hopefully it doesn't go too far away. But if not, I get it if you guys want to stop listening when David takes over some more, but that might have to happen. But before we jump into the fun stuff, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars on Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Go find us on the socials. Go search the Alex Cuesta Show. We didn't have a show last week. We had a conflict. Ended up not happening. 2 weeks ago, we had our buddy Matt Santos on. We talked about a smorgasbord of things. Go back, give that a listen. But I want to jump right into it while I still can talk a little bit. Our guest this week, it's exciting, kind of. I guess it's bittersweet, Dave, because when we wanted to talk to him, what was it, about 2-3 weeks ago, we were trying to do this.
Yes.
There was a glimmer of hope, some optimism in our lives as New York fans.
It was small.
It was small, but just like everything else as a Jets fan, it gets ripped away from us violently and with no remorse. And now, I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be a positive show. This is going to be a negative show. We might laugh. We might cry. We might do all the in-between. But this week, we have Matt O'Leary on. He is a New York Jets content creator and podcaster. What's going on, Matt?
Not too much, guys. Thank you so much for having me on today. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. You know, it's always a good time. You know, I've been following you. I have a whole entire Jets tab on my X, and you're one of the people that I have. So I've been following you for a little bit. If you're not following Matt, what is your X handle so that people can go and give you a follow?
Yeah, I'm over at Matt O'Leary NY over there talking Jets, try to keep it light and fun.
Yeah. So speaking of light and fun, I want to start off this show with something that I think is important that many people are going to want to hear. So if anyone's been paying attention to Jets Twitter throughout the year, we've had our fair number of spats between the content creators and personalities and things like that. So Matt, if there were any content creators that you think you would actually want to beat up or can physically beat up, here's your chance to call them out right now. Who, number one, it's a twofold. Who do you want to beat up in Jets Twitter? And who do you think you absolutely can beat up? It could be two different people.
I love Jets Twitter and I love our Jets content. So I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus like that. Although I think I could take Ryan, my co-host over on Talking Jets, Jets Talk 24/7. Yeah. I think I got the edge there. I got a little bit of the height advantage, but he's faster than me. He's a former track star, so he might be able to get me there. I don't know. I do show with Green Bean also. He's older, but he's feisty. I think he'd be able to get me.
I like you could be a politician. I like that answer. That was very political. But no, I just wanted to start off with a little bit of fun there because, yeah, Jets Twitter, for a little bit, for someone that's not really involved, that just kind of throws my little tweets out there, it was hilarious on the outside looking in, not going to lie. It was just basically like watching your cousins at a party just start slap fighting in the corner. And it's like, oh, let's just watch how this one goes. And it's fantastic. But, I mean, it was funny. I don't mind it. Let's see more of it. It means we have very little passion as Jets fans right now, so we need something. Speaking of our passion and Jets fans and lots of things lost, we had such high hopes. Week 1, Aaron Rodgers coming out with the American flag, and then 4 plays in, the football gods quite literally just go, we hate you more than the Browns. And there we go. And we lose Aaron Rodgers for, I guess he can come back this week if he wants to, but we lost him for the season because he's not playing this year. We all watched it unfold. Who do you blame for what has unfolded the most this season, because I think there's a lot of blame to go around for why this season happened the way it did. If you had to pinpoint it on one, multiple people, facets, who or what would you blame?
I think everyone kind of has a hand in this, but if like there's a pie chart of, how you're divvying up the blame here, I think Joe Douglas deserves the most criticism for how this went because really you look at the two biggest issues with the Jets after Aaron Rodgers goes down, like I get it. Super Bowl, aspirations go out the window when you lose your franchise quarterback, but I think he really mishandled the offensive line and backup quarterback. And I think he deserves a lot of criticism for it. Like all offseason, a lot of Jet fans, myself included, were saying that, if you want to reset Zach Wilson, that's fine, but let's get a veteran backup quarterback in here who you feel a little bit more comfortable with. And I know a lot of Jet fans who thought it was risky to run it back with Dwayne Brown at left tackle and Mekhi Becton at right tackle. I was rooting for Mekhi Becton to make the comeback after 2 years, but thought, man, that is risky for your plan A. And unfortunately, injuries ran its ugly head on the offensive line for a second year in a row. And I don't think they were aggressive enough at the backup quarterback spot. And really, I think those are the two biggest reasons why the Jets have struggled this year.
Yeah. I do also think we need to bar ever playing in Denver ever again. Ever again.
I agree with that. Now, I'm not going to really defend Joe Douglas because I agree with you. But let's take a look back. Before all the injuries to the line happened, I don't think we would be as critical, right? Because you look at the line, it was starting with, Dwayne Brown was a question mark, right? And then you had Lakin, who wasn't very good last year, but has been the healthiest guy all year. And was a lot better than he was last year. He's less of a rotating door. You had Connor McGovern, over at center. You had right guard was AVT and right tackle was Becton. You had Wes Schweitzer, Tipman, Max Mitchell, all his guys in the back. Most of the time you'll look at that and go, okay, it's a decent enough starting group and a solid three backups. I think every single one of those guys went down at some point this year. So can you really blame? Because if you're Joe Douglas, you're looking at it going, I did my work. I even brought over Billy Turner, who sucks, but Aaron Rodgers wanted him, right? He's played pro ball before. So viably, you had 9 guys that could play in the NFL as linemen. And for whatever reason, 9 of these guys all got hurt at some point. So, like, as much as I want to blame JD for that, he didn't put together an all-star line, but he put together a good enough starting group and enough backups in my eyes to at least, I don't know, no one could predict your 9 top guys going down in practice squad being there. So what do you think of that? Is there kind of something to that where he kind of got screwed a little bit there?
I think that's definitely, a fair, rebuttal to it. And I definitely hear where you're coming from. I think with tackle in particular, that's really the spot. I think that they didn't do enough. Like if you want to say on the interior, they did enough. I could get behind that, but still, like they gave Dwayne Brown this left tackle job pretty much in February when they were saying like, he's not retiring, he's coming back. And it was never really like, they said it was a competition, but it really wasn't. If you read, between the lines, he was winning a left tackle job. And then, it wasn't even a guarantee that Becton was going to start at right tackle. They had to ramp him up first. And I just wish he did more there. But it's totally fair to bring up the injuries because, if some of that is really a shame. But then I think that goes to the offensive line coach and Keith Carter, who's someone who I think deserves some blame too, because, notorious during his time in Tennessee was someone who ran hard practices and someone who, the veterans were getting banged up, as the year went on. And same things happening here in New York.
And I'll know that you guys real quick. I hated the whole 5 best thing. That annoyed me because it's like guys play positions for a reason. You talk about playing guys out of position. I get it. Some of your backups can be swing guys and do things and go different places, but your starters shouldn't be asked to play 3 or 4 different positions. It's a very weird thing that the Jets have going where it's like, we're just going to do our 5 best at whatever position we want them. And it's like, no, guys come in playing tackle, guard, center for a reason. It's what they're good at. Like play your best at their position. So now they're not trying to really relearn new positions. Go ahead, Dave. You had something to say. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the O-line coach because, like, even with when you brought up the injury history and hard practices, but also even some games where we're not typically that injured or we're not getting injured during the game, the offensive line looks like they don't understand some of the stunts coming their way. They don't understand passing off people correctly. So it's really weird what's happening to this offensive line, even when they're not as injured as they could be.
And what the hell has been up with the run blocking, Matt? I know you look at some of this stuff a little more in depth. Usually your linemen, you can count on them to run block, right? Because they want to maul, they want to get downhill. You have Breece Hall, you give him 1.5 yards, he's going to get 6. Like I forget, I think it was Nania of X Factor. Jets X Factor said one of the games, Breece Hall did not get a single touch that he didn't get hit behind the line. I think it was 2 weeks ago. Like, we have one of the best running backs in the NFL. You need to at least let him get to the line of scrimmage. Then he's going to make fun things happen. What have you seen that is causing this offensive line to be, they're abysmal at pass blocking, but they're better at pass blocking than run blocking. It's been really weird.
It is really strange. And I mean, you look at someone like Mekhi Becton, who as a rookie, like that was his biggest strength. He was a phenomenal run blocker and probably could use, a little bit more in pass protection, but he really hasn't been the same. Laken Tomlinson, someone you mentioned at left guard, where like they're the two most healthy guys this year, the left side of the line, but they haven't done nearly enough. I think they both underachieved. And, I hate to go back to the injuries here, but second season in a row, AVT goes down and they can't run the ball after AVT goes down. It happened last year when he got hurt in Denver, happened again this year. So, I think that's a big part of it too.
Now, what about wide receiver? Because I think I would put, O-line, yes, we could talk about the tackles, but I felt like Joe Douglas, beginning of the year, did enough to at least have a competent O-line. I think the injuries really screwed him there. I agree with you on the backup quarterback situation. Zach Wilson should have been in a hat and a T-shirt every game. There should be no reason why he was not, maybe the emergency guy, but no intention of playing him. So we should have got a vet there. What about wide receiver? I don't think any of us predicted that Corey Davis leaving the team and retiring would have affected us the way it did. Because, we looked at Corey. He was a good safety blanket for Zach, but he did have a lot of drops. There were a lot of easy pass drops that Corey Davis had.
Only if we knew.
If we knew. We would have taken that in a heartbeat. Yeah. No one knew that Randall Cobb would regress to running like a 7.0 40. No one knew that Alan Lazard actually played volleyball instead of football and swatted every freaking ball down instead of catching it. And that, guys we fell in love with in the preseason, Gibson getting involved more, but not enough. Nate Hackett doesn't do enough gadget plays to get him involved. Guys like Brownlee, Malik Taylor, I don't know if they're not getting separation and I don't know. Outside of Garrett Wilson, it's Garrett Wilson and then guys.
It's Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall.
I would fault Joe Douglas more with that wide receiver situation with Corey Davis going down and saying, okay, Sammy Watkins is sitting there in the ether. Why not take a flyer on, some veteran that's run routes before, that's gotten separation before? What about the wide receiver to you?
Yeah, I think that's a legit criticism as well. And, you could talk, their excuse was that Corey Davis retired on the eve of the season, which I get. That sucks. It really stinks losing him. But that's in August, man. Yep. Like, you had so much time to make another move, and they just didn't at the trade deadline or for weeks after. It was August, man. Like I said, there's 2 months they could have brought in another wide receiver, and they just refused to. And, sad with Lazard, it hasn't worked. I hate to admit it, but I kind of liked the signing at the beginning. I thought
I did as well.
Wide receiver, bigger wide receiver. He's worked with Aaron Rodgers. He's a great run blocker. They're going to want to be a run first team, red zone, jump ball threat. But he has been so bad this year. Drops, penalties, mistakes, brain farts. I don't know what's going on with him. But yeah, they clearly did not do enough in the wide receiver room. And they had time. They had time to do something else after Davis retired, and they didn't.
It gives me like bad memories of Stephen Hill, to be quite honest. Like Alan Lazard reminds me a lot of Stephen Hill in this year because has the potential, can make plays. Stephen Hill made a few nice catches, good blocker, physical dude, but not playing at an NFL level, which is sad because we've seen Lazard do that before. So in your eyes, just team-wise, just personnel-wise, not front office or coaching, what needs to be changed? I think our defense is fantastic. Like, I'm not touching that defense except for adding to it. On the offensive side, we got to mention no line and things like that. But if you're sitting there and you're able to make changes, add people, what would you do right now?
I definitely think they need a wide receiver two, high-end wide receiver two to pair with Garrett Wilson. There's going to be a ton of Devontae Adams rumors in the offseason, and it makes sense with, his connection with Rodgers and, where the Raiders are and just all that. There's been a lot of leaks there, so that feels like something that very likely could happen. But if not him, man, you have guys like Mike Evans, T. Higgins hitting the open market.
Michael Pittman.
Thank you. Yep, that's another one. Michael Pittman. Someone like that from that group we just listed off has to get in here. And they probably need 2 to 3 starters on the offensive line, which is a tough ask, right? Because Mekhi Becton's a free agent. With how he's played, I don't know how you bring him back. I think you have to look for an upgrade there. Dwayne Brown's not a realistic option to bring back, so that's another area. And, Laken Tomlinson's one where you can get out of the contract and save $8 million against the cap. And you'd like to probably upgrade that too. But can you realistically try to change the restarting offensive lineman? Like that's tough. The only 2 spots, though, that I feel really confident in are Tippmann at center and AVT, whether they put him at tackle or guard. So they probably need, like I said, 2 to 3 starters on that line.
Yeah, and when it comes to receiver, do you have a preference in whether or not you want to trade assets for Devontae or just straight up sign one of the? Because Devontae Adams is amazing, but do you want to give away potential picks that can be things or players or things like that, or just sign a guy like a Pittman or an Evans? Or because let's talk, Evans is a Hall of Famer. I think Devontae Adams, I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer yet. Mike Evans
is a Hall of Famer.
He is, but I feel like Mike Evans, what he's done, his body of work, it's probably more impressive. The guy is one of the best wide receivers of our generation. Now, he's down in Tampa, so he doesn't get the shine that he should. But the man hasn't missed 1,000-yard season, I think, was it almost 10 years now? It's something ridiculous that he's doing. So would your preference be to trade for Devontae or to just sign one of these top-end guys that are available?
I probably lean towards signing so you don't have to give up the draft assets. But, I don't think the Jets don't have a second-round pick this year, and I don't think it's taking a first-round pick to trade for Adams. I know, a couple of years ago he got a big package, but with the contract and his age, NFL trades, they're never as much. Usually, I mean, Jamal Adams trade was just a random one, but usually
that was great.
These guys are getting traded for significantly less than what people expect. Everyone thought, Dalvin Cook's going to get traded. He ends up getting cut. DeAndre Hopkins going to get traded. He ends up getting cut. So I think if it's a mid-round pick this year and something else next year for Adams, I'm okay with doing it. I'm not. I wouldn't be upset if the Jets went that route, obviously, but I think I lean towards signing someone.
Yeah, because those are the names that we rattled off to sign are also top end guys that could play. Garrett Wilson's the number 1, but you bring in an Evans, that's like a 1A. That's a 1A guy. It's not necessarily a 2. So I feel like that could be absolutely lethal. You would get your Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, your AJ Brown, Devonta Smith situation, but for the Jets, which would be nice. Now, you mentioned Joe Douglas a little bit with that trade with Jamal Adams. I feel like his strength has been his ability to trade because he's absolutely fleeced every single person he's traded with. We need somebody to just do everything else besides that as a GM. But so I want to talk Douglas, Salah, Hackett. I think Ulbricht, which is hilarious that you go back to Jets Twitter 2-3 years ago. Jeff Ulbricht needed to be fired. He sucked. That defense is terrible. What is he doing? He doesn't know what he's talking about. Now people are like, oh no, let's give Ulbricht a shot if Salah sucks. It's such a big flip on Ulbricht, so he gets a pass. But how much faith, take Hackett out of it because Hackett's a higher fire guy by Salah Douglas. How much faith do you have in the tandem of Joe Douglas and Robert Salah right now?
I mean, it's significantly less than before the season started. I get it. Both those guys are going to get brought back. They're going to get a pass for this year. I think they got a pretty long leash. If I know that's not happening, but if they both lost their jobs this offseason, I wouldn't really feel a ton of sympathy because they each had, pretty long leash, 3 years as a coach for Salah and Douglas, 5 years. I get it. He didn't have that first draft and, he had to tear it down. I understand all those things, but it's rare to see someone with this winning percentage through this amount of time that's going to get another year out of it.
Yeah.
You mentioned the trades. I think he's done a really good job at. I think he had a great 2022 draft class, but free agency is something that I think he struggled with a ton outside of the DJ Reed signing. He's really struggled in free agency. And there's been some spots in the draft that I haven't really agreed with him on the route that they went. For instance, I'm not out on Will McDonald. I think he could be a good player, but the logic of going with that pick was a head scratcher. And they seem to struggle to get those developmental offensive pieces later. They're able to do it on the defensive side of the ball, right? Like you find Michael Carter II, but all these mid-round swings that they've taken on the offensive side of the ball really haven't worked out. Like any of the offensive linemen, Carter Warren, Max Mitchell, oh my God, I'm forgetting Cameron Clark, right? 2020.
Yeah, Cameron Clark.
Cameron Clark.
Yeah.
Now, I know injury for Clark, which sucks, but if you want to build that elite offensive line, sometimes you got to hit on those mid to late round picks, and you get a starter in there.
100%.
But I think he deserves some criticism outside of landing a couple nice, really big trades for this team.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, especially that really hurt Salah and Douglas, is not only their record over the years and really what happened this season, but I mean, you look over at the Houston Texans, who were also in hell, and they have found a way to, I mean, they hit on CJ Stroud incredibly. Like Stroud's playing out of his damn mind.
Tank Dell.
And tanked out. But still, they're able to make things work in a short regime that they had in less time than us, I think, at this point. And they look like they're going to be a damn good team for a good bit.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, they shouldn't get this much leash. Like we've seen quicker turnarounds before.
Yep.
We see. I mean, look at it this year right now. Like how many teams have their backup quarterbacks, but they don't have that excuse that we lost our quarterback, so we're just going to fold it in. Like the Browns have started 4 or 5 quarterbacks.
Joe Flacco's the elite again. Joe Flacco's elite with the Browns.
I know it's crazy, but yeah, I mean, going into next year, I don't know how you don't have playoffs or bust. If you're not making the playoffs, they all pack their bags and go.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, you lose your starting quarterback. One, almost every team has this year, but also two, you usually score still a touchdown in like 3 games. So you might lose your starting quarterback, but your offense still needs to look like an NFL offense and not a D2 college one.
100%.
And, here's the thing. I'd like to revisit this exact conversation about Salah and Douglas after 4 weeks of One Jets Drive propaganda in the preseason, when every single one of us watches it and is like, Super Bowl. Because honestly, the Jets franchise, best thing they do is propaganda. And they don't play well. They don't do much. One Jets Drive propaganda is incredible. But yeah, I completely agree. I think that all that is legit. And, when you look back, Michael LaFleur was persona non grata, right? But if you look at what Michael LaFleur did, Zach Wilson sucked because every other quarterback that played under the LaFleur offense flourished. Josh Johnson was a monster under the LaFleur offense. Mike fucking White was incredible under the LaFleur offense for a game, at least. And then Flacco was 300 plus yards, multiple touchdowns. So it really looks like, Hackett is more of the problem and it's more of the personnel. Now, I do want to talk about Hackett. What would you grade Nathaniel Hackett this season?
F. Next, it's been really, really bad.
Yeah.
He's coming back though because of his relationship with Aaron Rodgers, but man, you wish you could get out of that one.
And how do you go from the games that he called with the Kansas City game and some of these games in the Houston game where it's like, oh, this offense looks great, like a lot of play action, a lot of, really good stuff. And then you go to other games, and it's like, oh, run, pass. Oh, run, pass. Oh, play action didn't work. Run again. Let's run on third. And it's like,
every Jets fan has nightmares of 2nd and 10 run the ball. What are you doing?
It's giving me 2020 flashbacks with Adam Gase and Frank Gore.
And Adam Gase had a better offense to this point, which is ridiculous that Adam Gase had a better offense to this point with, I'd argue, a much worse cast. Outside of the line, I mean, Nathaniel Hackett has Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. And that's another thing that annoys me. And last week, I really got annoyed at it. what did we see the Dolphins do? They were figuring out ways to get the ball in Jalen Waddle's hands. They were designing plays for him. Nathaniel Hackett, I think, designed plays to not go to Garrett Wilson, like to obviously go away from him, which mind boggles me. Throw a few screens. I don't think I saw a single 3-step drop all freaking game, which boggles my mind. But it's those little things, right? Like get it to your best player, force it, create design plays to get it to him, and I don't think we see that. So I guess, we're getting them running it back. We're going to have Douglas and Salah. If you could go into the room with a Robert Salah, what would be your advice to coach? What would you, because obviously we're not in the meetings, we're not in the practice. It's tough to really get in there. But from the outside looking in, what would kind of be your take as a content creator, someone that eats, sleeps, and breathes this to Robert Salah?
Find an identity on offense. They have a defensive identity, right? Mm-hmm. He has the all gas, no break. And that's how his defense plays. They play fast. Their defensive line gets after the quarterbacks. They have 3 great cover corners, and their linebackers fly around the field. They have a very strong identity on defense. On offense, you have no idea what it is that they are trying to do. So they need to, number one, find an identity on offense, and then be more aggressive, because he is way, way, way too conservative for me in these games. So those would be my 2 biggest pieces of advice for him.
And I think we're seeing the Rex Ryan effect, right? Because I think that was Rex Ryan's biggest criticism, that he wasn't involved on the offense. It doesn't really look like Salah's involved on the offense. It looks like Aaron Rodgers has more pull on the offense, because I've said to David a few times, I would like text him and be like, I'm pretty sure Aaron Rodgers is saying no to plays that Hackett's calling. Look, you see him on the sideline at times, like, no, like, I'm pretty sure Aaron Rodgers has had input, which is pretty ridiculous that you're paying guys good money to call these. And I get it. Aaron Rodgers is probably as good of a coach as anybody else, but he's a player. He should have the headset on just to listen and maybe give Zach some tips. But he's obviously there doing more than that. And that's on Salah. Salah needs to run a better ship. Now, we're going to go down this rabbit hole. David, you have your conspiracy about Bill Belichick.
It's out of the window. That's out of the window. That was like weeks ago, man. But I'll say it now. I had this ridiculous conspiracy that I made up just for nonsense and just for kicks, that there was a whole entire effort to try for the Jets to go get Belichick just to and it was some I can't remember the
you were going to trade Robert Salah for Belichick straight up because Belichick wanted to come and play with another Hall of Fame quarterback and get.
Yes, there you go. Yeah. It was because my idea was Belichick wanted to go with Aaron Rodgers just to stick it to Brady because Brady won without Belichick and Belichick's legacy is going down. It was something stupid like that.
Okay, I think he hates the Jets way too much to come back. Now, if you say he wants to team up with Justin Herbert and the Chargers, that I could be sold on for sure.
Yeah. Which I think is going to happen. I 100 actually think that's very strong.
Now, there's the Mike Tomlin debate that was going around Jets Twitter for a little bit. Where do you stand on Mike Tomlin as a coach? And would you take Mike Tomlin as the Jets coach?
I would not trade a first-round pick for Mike Tomlin, but if for whatever reason Pittsburgh moves on, I will personally drive to Pittsburgh and go pick him up to be the Jets head coach. I love Mike Tomlin. I think he gets more out of that roster than they deserve, right? And I know they had the hot start and they're struggling now. They lost their 3 straight games, and it feels like the national media is turning on him a little bit, like, he hasn't won a playoff game in the X amount of time, and this and that's great. He always finishes 9-8, but like, do you look at that? One, do you look at the quarterback that he's dealt with for the last 2 years, and Ben's last year? Let's be honest, he was horrific.
He was terrible. Yeah,
and like, that team stinks. They have no business being in the playoff hunt. I think I love how he runs the team. I think he's one of the best coaches in football, and I would absolutely hire him as the next Jets head coach if he was available.
We have a Steelers fan friend who would absolutely hates Tomlin now. He's like, he would say you could take him, and I'm like, I'm fine with it. Honestly.
He's hated Tomlin for years. To be fair, he's been critical of Tomlin even when they were winning Super Bowls. So it's like. I don't know why. It's just bizarre. It's like, you don't understand what you're talking about, because Jets fans, come on, we haven't had a great coach since Bill Parcells. We're being quite honest. Like, Herm was okay, man. Genie had moments. I mean, like, we haven't had a great coach. Like, Rex was good, but very good on the defensive side. Overall, we haven't had a great coach since Parcells, in my eyes. Do you agree, Matt?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think they've had some pretty good ones. Like, I think Herm was, like you said, Herm was okay. He had some nice moments. Mangini, Mangini, I think, was a better talent evaluator than he was a coach. And I do think he got a raw deal with how things ended with Favre, but it did lead into the two, best years of any of our Jets fans in 09 and 10. But Rex's gimmick wore off after a little bit. And I don't know if you guys see it, but I can't stand the bring back Rex to coach. Like, dude, he's been a bad coach for like a decade, man. Like the last couple years with the Jets, and even when he was in Buffalo, like I don't know if this was early 2000s football still. Yeah, he could still coach up a defense. In a modern NFL, I'm not sold.
Mm-hmm. I'd bring Rex on as a consultant at most, like, come console, come like, because he can still talent evaluate on defense. I still think he can understand and like maybe bring in like an exotic concept that someone, because his brain for blitzes is still ridiculous. Like he's the only guy I know would look like he's rushing 8, 2 would rush and 1 would get home. Like it was ridiculous the way he was able to do things. But yeah, I don't know if he could necessarily be a full-time coach in this NFL. I really want to get the guy. I don't know who was it that was getting the Fire Idzik billboards and the Fire Idzik planes.
Forgot about
But
that.
if Tomlin gets available, I want that guy to get higher Tomlin and higher Tomlin planes, because I think that would be fantastic. So we have to find out who that is. If anyone's listening, any Twitter sleuths, 4chan people, go do your thing. Go find this individual for us. And Matt, you go do your thing. Do you know who it is?
No, I wish I did. I'd have them on the phone immediately.
I mean, if we did, we'd have him on the podcast and we'd send them your way as well. That would be a great person. So I want to talk about next season, because obviously this season's already over, right? We have 2 more games. They're going to go through the motions. Knowing the Jets are going to win both, ruin draft stock, right? That's just what the Jets do. Next season, we talked a little bit about what we would change. But if you're going into the preseason, what is your first priority as, Joe Douglas? What do you want in the draft, and what is your first priority free agency?
Yeah, so to me, I think it depends on where they end up picking. I am very much so team offensive lineman in the first round. I love Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. I think that would be a home run selection. With that said, if they end up high enough to a point where Marvin Harrison Jr. is available, that is I would take him over Joe Alt. As much as I love Alt and they need to fix the offensive line, I think Harrison is that talented where you make the pass and you get the receiver. Other than that, I think you go offensive line. I'm not a fan of drafting Brock Bowers, the tight end out of Georgia. I've seen some people mention that. I understand that he's not your stereotypical tight end. It would just be adding another weapon. I get that, but that's not the direction that I'd like to go. And I also I'm not someone who believes they should take a quarterback in the first round. I'm not saying you can't take one later, a developmental guy in the 3rd, 4th round. That's fine. But, with Rodgers coming back, I think that first round pick has to go to the offense that could help out in 2024, not this, project quarterback you're hoping is going to start in 3 years.
Does Joe Douglas get fired immediately if he takes Bo Nix in like the 6th or 7th?
That would be tough. That would be a real tough one for me to swallow. God, I would say you're done, Joe. I'm sorry.
Because, I'm just thinking of the most Jets things to do. And that would be like, oh, Bo's available.
Yeah.
He's still sitting at a table because Bo Nix is going to get invited, right? Like he's going to get invited and he's going to be that guy that's sitting there and has to be like escorted by Goodell back to the room, because let's be honest. I don't think, now again, maybe Bo Nix does get drafted. I don't know why he gets drafted. I think he's a nice dude. He's had a great NCAA career, a 10-year NCAA guy. You don't get many of those, the Van Wilders, but I mean, come on. I don't know. But that's a Jets thing, right? It's a Jets thing to go get Bo Nix.
I'm with you there. I've really liked, the more I've watched the Jaden Daniels, I think he's become my QB3 in this draft class. And I'd even go Michael Penix before I would think about taking Bo Nix. Man, I think he's getting his AARP card soon.
I think he's older than me. He's honestly been around longer than I have. So before we get out of here, what is your outlook on 2024? Because, if anything, Jets fans, we're the most optimistic humans of all time. We get so down, but they say you hit rock bottom, you have only one place to go is up. We quite literally hit rock bottom every year. I don't think there's we get slammed down every single year, and we just are building ourselves back up via the preseason. So right now it might be bleak, but what is your outlook on 2024?
Yeah, I mean, I still think I'm optimistic going into next year. I'm not going to be brash and say this team is definitely winning a Super Bowl. I think that'd be absolutely crazy. But
Yeah.
with Rodgers coming back, I do think that, there's no reason that they aren't, a 10 plus win team.
Mhm.
If you make some changes, he talked about retooling on the offensive side of the ball. To me, that's obvious. But I think Rodgers is good enough. Having an elite quarterback of that status makes your bad offensive line a little bit better, makes your bad play caller a little bit better. Like, you could hide things a little bit better when you have an elite quarterback. So I do think that, assuming that Rodgers is healthy and playing, we'll call it 15 plus games next year, I think the Jets should be a playoff team in 2024.
Now, another question, is Bryce Huff going to be in a Jets uniform next year?
He should. I mean, I know we talked heavily on offense, and pretty much on defense, you're like, all right, let's just run it back. But I think it'd be a massive mistake if they let this guy walk. I've been, for 2 or 3 years now, I think I've been saying, like, first, can we get this guy on the field more? He's obviously a talented player. And then they finally do it this year after a few weeks. And he's on his way to having a 10-sack season, So I think it would be a massive mistake if they let him walk. Keep your homegrown, talented, developed players.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you need to take out the checkbook, sign him, and maybe go somewhere else. And, get there's a lot of places we can go, right? We got to cut Carl Lawson. We got to restructure a whole bunch of guys. Like, Lakin needs to take less money. Like, there's certain guys that need to get that done. But yeah, I just wanted to jump on that. In terms of the defense, though, do you see any changes, any additions, anything that you would want to do on the defense?
Really, I think my biggest question mark is what are they going to do at safety, because Jordan Whitehead's a free agent. I don't think he's honestly been that great. I know he has had some interceptions, but he misses a ton of tackles, man.
Is Chuck Clark coming back the answer there, or are they going to look to Clark as the guy coming back there?
I would, this is going to sound crazy because of how critical I was of him early in his career, but I'd bring back Ashton Davis. I think he's been a playmaker.
He's every time he's on the field.
Yeah, which is nuts, because his first 2 or 3 years in the league, I was like, all right, clearly this guy's a phenomenal athlete because of what he did at Cal. That was obvious, but just football IQ not there yet. Like, he was taking terrible pursuit angles. He was getting lost in coverage, but he would make big plays because of how athletic he was. But I think the football IQ is catching up. So I would re-sign him, and I would bring back Chuck Clark, to be honest with you, because I think you can get him on a 1-year relatively cheap deal. And, I think you can live with a safety room of Clark, Ashton Davis, and Tony Adams as your 3 guys.
Yeah, no one, honestly, I feel like Ashton Davis just took boxing lessons, because nobody punches at, he punches at the ball with every single tackle. I don't think I've seen him make a tackle where his fist isn't coming around this year. So he's been a pleasant surprise. Dave, what about you? What's your outlook going into next year?
I feel okay. It just depends on really the moves that are being made, honestly, because like the same thing, like my trust has kind of gone down on Douglas and Salah, and that's obviously with a year like this, it's going to happen. But it just depends on the moves being made. Rodgers coming back, obviously, is a good thing. Rodgers helps no matter what. I feel good about this defense. I'll tell you that. I feel really good about this defense. As long as we have those 3 corners and Quinnen, and hopefully we get Huff back, and like, it's just going to be good. It's just going to be really damn good. So I don't know. Right now, I'm hoping that we're fighting for a playoff spot next season. That's what I'm hoping for, because I can't necessarily trust that the team is going to be aggressive enough and play like they should, especially on the offensive side, to keep winning these games, because we can't just trust in our defense to just do everything they possibly can to keep it low scoring. So I don't think that'll happen with Rodgers, but you never know. So I'm feeling like we're fighting for a playoff spot, but well, we'll see.
And I take my approach I take every year. Dave, you know mine. What can go wrong will go wrong. I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to be happy about moves.
We get a 5th play out of Rodgers before something happens.
We get 5 and 1 completion. We need at least 1 damn completion. Give us 1 to Garrett Wilson. That's it. All I want. But the last thing I have to address, they are out of the 5-year window for the uniforms. And the logos, like does Woody Johnson do the Johnson's Cave and bring back the 90s logos and make them permanent? Matt, what do you think?
Yes, I think they add a green version of what they have, like the legacy. Yep. They do, the legacies as the away, and then they make a green version, and that's what they do. And they should bury every single one of these jerseys.
Yes,
as 100 feet below the ground. They represented the worst era of New York Jets football. Adam Gase, 2019-20. into the Zach Wilson, Robert Saleh
Yep.
injuries. So yeah, get rid of these, please.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I've just had the biggest issue with the way the Jets market their stuff. You've heard me talk about this, Alex, but especially with their logo. Why is there not a damn plane in our logo? Why is it just a football every time? Like, just do something with the plane. You could have fun with our logo, but they never do it. But I am hoping we go back to the 90s.
Which the 90s logo does, because over the
Yes.
top of the jet,
Yeah.
it's a fin.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah.
wing.
Yeah.
And, and it's like, it's not like it can't be done because they do it in Canada, damn it. The Winnipeg Jets has a jet in their logo.
Yeah.
So there's no reason we can't do it. They could do something cool, even if they put like the plane and then the wings coming down. Like, I don't know, make it a college thing. I don't care. Do something because we suck. All right, I'm back to being negative. Go Jets. But anyway, Matt, really appreciate you coming on.
Wait.
Love talking Jets. Dave, well, you have one thing. You have your
Yes,
you have your
I have my usual non sequitur that I
Yes,
like to
yes.
ask. Now, it is Christmas time, Matt. So this is going to be just wholly on Christmas. What is either your favorite, your weirdest, your oddest Christmas gift that you've ever received or ever gotten for someone, if you want to do both those? But obviously, I'm not trying to have you call someone out, but just something that sticks out in your mind.
Okay, so I guess the Christmas gift that I received that really jumps out to me. So date myself a little bit, but Christmas 2000 got the Nintendo 64 and Mario Kart, and I thought that was the best Christmas ever. Like, I was pretty young at the time, but that's like the present that really stands out to me. Also, one year when I was in middle school, I got my first cell phone for Christmas one year, so like that one really jumps out. But yeah, not any like really too weird ones. But like those, to me, those are like the two most memorable ones that I have over the years.
Dave, what about you? What's your most memorable one?
It's probably going to be a game system as well. I'm pretty sure I got the Xbox for Christmas.
Mine's a PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
We're all kids of this generation, right?
Yeah,
like this
basically.
the gaming generation. But yeah, awesome. Matt, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Once again, he's Matt O'Leary. He's a New York Jets content creator and podcaster. Go find him on X at Matt O'Leary NY. Dave, what are you shaking?
Twitter.
It
It's
is X.
Twitter.
Okay? At this
X
point,
is
it's
such
Twix.
a bad
You know what?
name.
We're going to call it Twix. We are going to take that. Go on Twix. And,
left or right?
left or
one?
right Twix, whichever one. But go on Twix, go at Matt O'Leary NY. He's a great follow for New York Jets content, and even just to get a laugh every once in a while. He'll troll. It's a good time. And once again, you can go find us. Thank you for bearing with me and my voice. You can find us. Just go search the Alex Cuesta Show. Like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars, Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth, and everybody have a Merry Christmas. I believe we'll be back next week for a show before the new year. If not, Happy New Year. But who knows? Things happen. Anyway, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. So long.